Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and to this time-lapse version of a plain tiger butterfly in soft pastel. If you enjoy this here, then please do hit subscribe and check out all of my other playlists here on YouTube. Also, if you'd like real-time tutorials, this one and a full library of different tutorials are available over on my Patreon channel. I'll add links in the description. For this demo, I'm using Fisher 400 paper. I like to use this paper sometimes, especially when I'm painting things like this in nature. The colours on this paper tend to look really, really vibrant. Out of all of the sanded papers, this tends to be my go-to for a rougher texture. But with this piece, my main aim was to make the most of the lovely opposite or complementary colours within the photo reference. I really like to make use of opposite colours, and I talk about that a lot in my work. Sometimes it's used very subtly within the shadow tones, for example. But then sometimes it's used really obviously within a painting. And I was looking forward to getting some of these greens blocked in the background, just so that I could see the effect that the reds and oranges would have. So the first part of the process is working up the background. I often do that. I like to get what's behind done first and build things up kind of logically from background to foreground, overlapping the new edges of things with what's behind. I'm using mostly unison soft pastels with a small number of Terry Ludwig greens. The harder black pastel that I'm using is a new pastel. And then a bit later on you will see some pastel pencils popping up too. I list all of those materials, of course, over on Patreon if you are hoping to join me and paint this one along with me. As with all of my time-lapse videos, there is a full-length version available too if you'd like to paint along. Over on Patreon each month, I release a full-length tutorial series. Quite often these can take you right from beginning to end in a bigger pet portrait that I've been working on, for example. They cover a broad range of subjects. But then also each month, I indulge myself with a smaller painting like this. Something that takes less than 4 hours to complete. Something that makes use of one of my photo references from nature. And these are the mini demos. So I get a great deal of enjoyment from these smaller pieces because I'm well used to paintings taking 10 plus hours. And with these smaller demos, I really get to create something and have a bit of fun with just a couple of sittings. So I start to work towards the foreground now, getting more of the greens blocked in around the butterfly. And you can see I'm not really adding much detail to these bigger leaves. Just trying to hint at a little bit of light and shade and where some of the more prominent veins in the leaves can be seen. But I was really hoping that I wouldn't have to go into too much detail on the leaves because leaves notoriously catch me out quite often. I'll think that something looks quite simple and that I'm going to get it done in no time. And then it will be some green leaves somewhere that trip me up and I end up taking ages on it. So with pieces like this, I'm really trying to develop a way that I can capture the effect I want for the leaves without having to paint absolutely every little vein and detail. And in this case, I decided to rely on the colour relationship between the two really vibrant colours in this painting, red and green. and on the detail that I'm going to add to the butterfly. Hopefully then that is enough detail in the painting for it to make sense. So I decided to come back to the leaves and add some finishing touches to those, but work on at the butterfly now. You can see that I've also left the bottom right corner of the painting untouched. And that's pretty much just so that I can lean my dirty hand here, because I keep getting some pastel on the side of my hand, and for the details on the butterfly wings, it's good to be able to anchor my hand somewhere. And so I leave that section of background until I get a bit more work done on the butterfly. Now, some of these colours are some of my favourite but lesser used unison pastels. The reds and oranges in their range are really vibrant. And as I said at the start, one of the things that I really love about the Fisher 400 paper is how vibrant the colours seem to look. The same pastel sticks can look quite different depending what paper you've used. And this is really one of the papers where I think the pastel pigments look their most vibrant. That being said, each time I use this paper, I do remember some of the things that I find a bit difficult on it. It does take many layers, but it's also quite difficult to put the lighter colours on top without contaminating some of it. So for example, when working on the butterfly, it was difficult to keep these vibrant areas clean and to not let any of the black pigment muddy those areas. So the paper is a little bit perhaps slippy when you get a few layers of pastel on it, but it can be controlled. And as I said, I really, really love the look of the pastel pigment, how it sits on this paper. When you see a bunch of finished pastel paintings all up close together, the difference between the different pastel papers really becomes apparent. You can see it in the finished result. So little bits of pastel pencil now. Just creating some of the detail and creating a smoother transition from the reds down to the yellows. So pastel pencil, extremely useful on the butterfly. And then as you'll see as well, I go back now to work more on the background to fill in this bottom right corner. And really the only thing that I do now to the rest of the leaves is to add a little bit of detail on the veins around the edges of the leaves. But it was definitely my intention to try and leave the background a little bit less detailed and to let the crispness of the butterfly really shine out. So just putting the finishing touches on the butterfly. And then just spend a little bit of time livening up the background, making a few adjustments. Around this point, I stepped away from the painting, went and had a cup of tea, came back to add the finishing touches and to think about what the leaves really need to finish them off. I decided to broaden the stem that we can see coming up here. Adding little hints of colour throughout the background. Something that I talk a lot about in the real-time tutorial series from this. How I'm tying together all of the colours that I've used. And then just darkening the shadow right in underneath the butterfly here. So just a few minor alterations to finish off. So at this point, I would just love to thank all of you guys for watching my videos. If you've made it this far into a time lapse, then you're probably one of the people who do watch a lot of my videos and show me support here on YouTube. As many of you know, I disappeared from Instagram back in November. My account was hacked and deleted, and I've just restarted actually. I've just joined and restarted my account on Instagram. So if you previously followed me there, please do come and search for me again. I would love to reconnect with some of the 15,000 followers that I lost. And remember to subscribe here if you haven't already. But thanks very much for watching. And until next time, happy pasteling.